So if you had to pick your most important piece of marketing advice, the number one thing, what would it be?
Well, I think the number one thing is you got to map out where your audience is in what I call the circle. All right, now in Get the Gig, I talked about a triangle. In Got the Gig, I'm talking about a circle. So I'm really deep on these on these analogies here. But so I want somebody to imagine a circle, okay? And there's 4 layers. It basically looks like the Earth, right?
Yep.
When you're doing this kind of thing. So you've got your outer layer, you've got another, you've got one that's getting pretty much to the core, and then you've got your core, okay? So the outer layer is probably your most difficult to get through. Imagine that one is steel or lead or something crazy. I mean, it should be your thickest layer, but for the purposes of this, we're going to look at it like it's thin, truly like the Earth, right? That is people's attention. Okay, if you don't get that one, you got nothing else. You have to get somebody's attention. So when you put up posters and you're promoting for your show, you're posting on Facebook, you're doing all these kind of things, that's all great, but the only people that are going to notice it and respond to it are people who have already had who already have an experience with you, because otherwise there's so much messaging going on, there's so much marketing going on that it's impossible for them to just notice something new, right?
Yeah.
It's just the world that we live in right now. There's a great book called Positioning. They talk about how, I think this is the right number, is that the average grocery store has 12,000 brands in it. And this book was written quite a while ago, so it's probably a lot higher now, but has 12,000 brands in it. All right. The average college student or a college graduate comes out of college with a 4-year degree knowing their entire vocabulary of 8,000 words. So you're into your 16 years of education, 4 years of higher education, you're 4,000 words behind the average grocery store. So how is it that with all of that information, certain products are able to stand out, right? So you have to start looking at some things to say, okay, I need to grab, even if just one at a time, a few people and make an impression on them where I can break through that first layer and get their attention. After that, after you get their attention, it doesn't mean that necessarily they're a fan yet. They go into that second layer. They know of you. They've heard of you. Doesn't mean that they're coming necessarily to the show, but they at least know who you are. You've gotten through the hardest part. Now you're just in constant communication. This is where the social media and the posters and all the interaction and all the things that you see. A lot of people go, well, social media doesn't work. Posters don't work. All this stuff doesn't work. It's not that it doesn't work. You're missing the first step. Got to get their attention first. And maybe that's open mics. Maybe that's some networking events. Maybe that's whatever, maybe that's collaborating with some other artists. We go into some of those kind of things. But you got to get through that layer first. You then get to the second layer. That's when your social media and all that stuff starts to take effect. And you kind of slowly go through that layer, right? Now you get to that inner layer. Now that's where you've got some real fans. They know you. They like you. They've got your recordings. They show up to the shows. They follow you. Awesome. And then there's your inner core. Now your inner core is a wonderful place to get people, but you got to also be careful with it. Your inner core, man, they look at you like family, like that. You're it for them. They show up at every show. They're doing everything. They're pushing your music to all their friends, all this stuff, and they're wonderful, and we all know them and we all love them. But that group may also not want to expect to pay for the new CD.
Yeah,
they want to be put on the list. They don't want to have to pay the cover to get in. Right? Not because they don't want to spend the money. They spend a lot of money to get to that point. They look at you and go, "Hey, man, I helped you carry your gear in.
Yeah.
Shouldn't I get, So it's not to say that that's a bad thing. I just want people to break everybody down in those 4 categories. There's those that don't know you, and you got to break their attention. There's those that may know you, but it doesn't mean they're a fan yet. We got to start engaging and really trying to push them down that layer. That third layer, that's where you want everybody, but then there's going to be some that are going to go in that core category. It's not to say that that's a bad thing. It's just you can't engage with them the same way you engage with everybody else. If they come to the show and you go, hey, they're going to leave furious.
Yeah.
Whereas somebody who's a fan, hey, they just noticed me. Whereas the other guy goes, You're not gonna come to my house after? What come on. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
So that's the deal, is know your fans, categorize them, and understand that if you're going to market strategically, you've got to know what kind of fan you're looking at. along that 4-part progression.
Right on, right on.